AJ, happy opening day. It's exciting for the players and coaches, just as exciting for front office as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always, I mean, one of the best days of the year for sure. It's obviously a great day for every team, every city baseball back, and super excited here in San Diego. Great fan base, looking forward to it.
Yeah, if we can talk about some of the final roster moves. Mike talked about all spring training, how it was going to be difficult. A lot of guys were really doing a great job battling for some of those final spots. Can you share with us a little bit what went into some of those final decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have tough decisions, you know. So I think part of it, you know, each individual decision a little bit different, but I think it's a long season, so I think you get caught up in, hey, one day. I think for us we were looking, hey, let's keep depth. You know, you're always looking at, players that bring different skill set and give Mike and the staff an opportunity to have a versatile roster. Right left balance, ultimately, experience, some youth, some energy. So I think we tried to line it up that way. I think the good news, though, overall for us is we're going to have good options throughout. So, we're not going to be, married to one form of the roster. This is how we decided to break with it. And we'll get into the season. And if we need to make adjustments, we've got a lot of guys in the organization that showed in spring training that they can help us, and won't be afraid to make some moves if we need to.
With some of those moves, you mentioned some of the variables that go into it. Was there a theme in general? Was the versatility maybe more important, or maybe a specific skill that a guy brought to a certain spot, and coming off the bench, or was it different for each decision?
Yeah, I just think it was kind of how it all blended out together. I think that's how we always look at it from a 26 man roster, and you're constantly looking and having conversations with Schulte and the group about how would we use this player or that player, how does it fit together. It wasn't any one any one factor. Again, kind of like everybody looking at their roster status and where some guys are at, that factored in as well. Ultimately, that's how we landed on the crew that we got to today.
How about the control that you have with some of the guys that were either DFA'd or sent down? Eggy, for example, being out of options. What's sort of the status with some of them, if you can update us?
Yeah, I mean, Eggy's a big league player. He's got real talent and ability, and kind of seeing his progression over the years. We saw it last year. He can do damage. He can do a lot of things to help a team win a game. So he was a tough decision in terms of, a player that's a younger player with a real skill set, play all over the field. We've had some trade conversations with him. I think it's an opportunity for him to go elsewhere where he may get more of an opportunity to play. It's tough for a young guy breaking in on a talented, roster with some really established players and stars throughout the diamond. So, he was one of those tough calls again at the end. Most likely we have some time now to sit back. There's some trade interest. We'll see if we make a deal that makes some sense for us here in the next few days.
So it sounds like you're kind of pretty aware that you might be losing him. You would be losing him when you made that decision. How tough was that, all things considered, then?
Yeah, not tough. I mean, it's out of options. Sometimes good for the player. Sometimes it makes it more difficult on the player because you have a player that he's on your roster, kind of like a Rule 5 guy. He's kind of locked in on the roster. So I think for Eggy, we had some other guys step in and make it a tough call too. But he's going to get an opportunity to go elsewhere, play in the big leagues. I would think immediately, and we'll try to add some value and through a trade here in the next week.
What went into the decision in terms of a right-handed first base DH option to go with Willie Gurriel over Connor Joe, who also offered some ability to left field?
Yeah. Again, conversation with Schulte, the staff. I mean, both guys, I think, they both show that they're going to help teams and help our team here this year. Super close decision. Connor had as good a camp as you can ask him to have. He was, shooting balls, low line drives to right field, good at bats, take a walk. He's versatile. That was one of the tough conversations. Connor's a total pro, and he's going to help our team this year. We just thought, hey, again, opening day we had a chance to kind of break with a little bit more depth, and that was as tough as any of the conversations that we had. But again, I think the message for our group and that we know is Connor's going to help our team probably sooner than later. But both guys have a pretty tough, pretty good skill set that'll help us against left-hand pitching, and ultimately went with Gurriel over Connor.
Darvish played catch yesterday. I don't know if you have a specific timeline on maybe when he might press.
I think, yeah, I mean, like Scott Hacker does a good job bringing our guys back. So, him and Darvish putting a plan together. It's still going to be day-to-day, kind of seeing how he feels. He'll start to stretch out, yesterday, getting back on the field. He wanted to wait till he got back to Petco, give it a few days and then come back and test it yesterday. Yesterday's news was positive. He felt really good coming out of it, which is the first step. Now he'll start to progress, longer catch play. But in terms of like knowing, hey, he'll be back on the mound on this day or that day, we're not at that stage yet.
What do you make of the state of the entire rotation now? Obviously, the last two spots going to Hart and Vasquez. What do you make of that?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think having Cease King and Pivetta in the rotation, three guys that we're going to lean on. That obviously with Cease and King, two guys that were in the Cy Young conversation last year, and it's kind of state of baseball. Like all teams, no matter how much starting pitching you have, you look throughout the league. We start with 5 or 6 guys starting on the IL for us. Unfortunately, it's kind of almost expected now that your depth is going to get tested early. But it's we saw it last year with Vasquez and Waldron stepping in, and those guys played a real role in us getting to the playoffs. We're going to need others step up. Kyle Hart gets the first crack. We'll have some guys at AAA like Kolick and others that you mentioned. Gillespie that pitched well in spring training. But you're going to need a lot of starting pitching options. We've got a lot of faith in Hart and Randy to get us started, and that's ultimately kind of an expected, honestly, today in the state of baseball from a pitching standpoint.
AJ, can you go a little bit more into the decision to add Hart and Randy and having Steven go down to AAA?
I think with Hart, it's again like left-handed is gives us a different look. I think what we saw in spring training is that he has weapons that can play. With the sweeper cutter mix, the sneaky fastball at 90-92. Got swing and miss and was able to get some, what we think have some hitters look uncomfortable at times. I think now it's going to be consistently going out every 5 days. He's also a guy that got, that went out and took on workload last year in Korea. So I think a little bit with some of the guys looking at, last year, some guys not ending, on the active roster, knowing it's going to be 162 games, we can kind of shape AAA a little bit more in terms of their workload. And with Randy, the last couple of outings, one on a backfield, one in Chicago. I think his last outing he threw 44 pitches, 39 strikes. And just faith, it's not just what you see in 3 weeks in spring training. I think, obviously guys have track record for a reason. Randy helped us last year. I think end of the day, myself, Schulte felt like he gets the first crack, and we'll see how it goes.
AJ, how crucial is this window opportunity that you guys have right now with both Cease and King and Arise final years of the contracts, with the age of some of the contracts you have with Machado and Bogarts? How important is this particular season?
Every year is important, so it's, again, I think, we've been talking about since 2020. You're going to have different versions of teams, but I think the good part for us is we've got established players that, that create a core, and then, you're always looking to, certain years you've got to add and subtract. It's kind of just the nature of pro sports today with free agency and trades. But when you look at a team that you start, you go into opening days with, Machado, Tatis, Merrill, Cronenworth, Bogarts, some of the younger players that we saw in spring training that looked to have really bright futures. Every year really important, but I think what we by design it's put a core together, put a core group of players together, look to add to that core as well, which we're going to continue to do this season. And then you've got to always adjust and make changes, but it's never about one season. It hasn't been that way for us over the last 5 years. It's every single year for, I think the goal from 20 to 2020 every year starting, for this decade as we look up and have a playoff caliber team. Again, we take that serious. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to go do that. But we understand like every year is a little bit different and go from there.
And AJ, new control person, of course, in John Seidler. Have you gotten the message from that ownership group that this team can continue to add, or what's been the overall message?
Yeah, I think with John, personally, there's been, myself has been, worked under different setups and different kind of leadership group at the very top. Over the 10, 11 years now that I've been here with John. I think the one thing that's been consistent is people that want to win and understand it takes a commitment to win. John's been very consistent in his messaging over the last month in terms of, really no different than what I've seen here over the last 11 years. It's why I came here. It's kind of the, what we've pushed here is it's about winning championships. I think day one we talked about big stage. I think the organization, has transformed from, an organization that people were hoping every few years in terms of, to an organization every year, the expectation, and it's fun to be a part of from the fans, is go get in the playoffs and win a World Series. And to do that, you need resources. I'm very confident the resources are there, and I think that's been consistent, as well in the last month with the messaging from John.
AJ, fourth oldest team in the MLB, just how important is that experience from opening day and moving forward?
Yeah, again, I think it's always a blend. So I think we saw that last year. It's, it's nice having a guy like Jackson Merrill at 21 years old, and then a guy like Tatis at 25, 26 years old, and then some guys that have been there, done that. Coming off the bench. To be like with some players that are a little bit older but have a ton of experience. It's going to be a very competitive National League. There's a lot of really good teams. I think we'll look at every possible advantage we can use, and I think with Schulte, a lot of what he brings to the clubhouse every day, what he preaches in terms of that baseball talk, relying on our past experience that we've had as a group, and then trying to bring that out of guys like Hayward and Gurriel and some others that have played in championships and World Series settings that know what it takes to go wire to wire and finish off a season. We're going to lean on all those guys, and that was part of the decision there at the end.
Time for a couple more. Rosario, there's some trade interest. What about Tyler Wade? What looks like the likely outcome of him?
Yeah, Tyler's a guy that I think clears waivers. To me, he's a guy we want back in the organization. So he'll have a decision to make. It's again, you talk about super tough decisions. That was obviously one of them at the end. He was a real part of our team last year. He brings a ton of versatility. What he did on the bases, what he does in that locker room. So, again, I think from our standpoint, myself, our entire front office, our coaching staff, everybody's clear we want Tyler back. He's got a decision though. I mean, that's part of his status and what he can do, and we're going to continue to talk to him a lot here in the next few days. That let him know, even though it wasn't opening day this year, which I know is disappointing, that he fits, and he's a guy that brought a lot of value to us last year. Hopefully we line up on him again here this year, and he comes back, has an opportunity. We see him back here at some point in Petco.
Couple of AJ.